I fix the parts of people that let them share a body with someone else. That sounds worse than it is. The bridge, what we call skylark mesh when we're writing reports and what we call the link when we're tired, is just a coordination system. It solves a simple problem. Earth is up to 20 minutes away from Mars at light speed, and you cannot build anything complicated when your crew's hands are 20 minutes behind their eyes. So we put a socket behind each worker's ear, run a braided copper lead to a head frame that looks like a crown made of bent wire, and let a conductor on the yard coordinate the crew on the ground. The conductor thinks lift, and 40 hands lift. The conductor thinks turn, and 40 wrists rotate in sync. It is faster than radio, cleaner than automation, and after 18 months of operation, we have had exactly 0 incidents requiring a medical review. Until Carter. I am in the med bay at 3:15 in the morning because Carter cannot stop moving his left hand. 2 technicians, Wen and a younger woman whose name I do not catch, are holding his forearm flat against the cot while he sweats through his shirt and stares at the ceiling like he is trying to see through it. His hand opens, closes, opens again. The motion is precise, thumb and first 2 fingers forming a pinch, then releasing, then forming it again. No hesitation. No variation. How long? I ask. 14 hours, Wen says. She is short, built like a load-bearing beam, and she does not look at me when she answers. Her attention stays on Carter's wrist. He came off shift at 1300 yesterday, said his hand felt tight, thought it was a cramp. Carter makes a sound in his throat that is not quite a word. His eyes track toward me, then away. The hand keeps moving. I kneel beside the cot and check the socket first. It is a ceramic disc the size of a coin set flush with the skin behind his left ear. Clean. No infection, no heat, no swelling. The port is empty. No lead, no crown, nothing active. I press 2 fingers against the surrounding tissue and feel for the telltale buzz of a live connection. Nothing. The implant is as inert as bone. You pulled the lead? I ask. Before we called you, Wen says. Crown's in the lockbox. I ran a diagnostic on the socket. It says inactive. Inactive? I repeat, and watch Carter's hand open and close. The motion has a rhythm to it. Fast on the close, slower on the release, like someone working a clamp. I have seen that rhythm before. Most of us have. It is the way Jude Callan moves when he is setting a bracket for a high-tension pull. Get me a sedative, I say. 60 milligrams, intramuscular. The younger tech moves fast, pulling a preloaded syringe from the cabinet and passing it to me without a word. I inject it into Carter's shoulder, smooth and quick, and we wait. The sedative is supposed to take 3 minutes. I count them by watching the clock on the wall above the med bay door. 180 seconds that feel longer than they are because Carter's hand does not stop. His breathing slows, his jaw goes slack, his eyes lose focus. The hand opens, closes, opens. I log the incident in my tablet as equipment malfunction and request a full hardware inspection. The words feel inadequate, but they are the ones the system understands. When I look up, Carter is unconscious, head lolled to the side, chest rising and falling in the deep rhythm of forced sleep. His left hand is still moving. The fingers pinch air where a bracket should be. 3 days later, I am standing on the observation deck watching a welding crew work in perfect silence. The deck is a long, glass-walled room that runs along the yard's eastern edge, designed so corporate liaisons and safety officers can observe operations without getting in the way. Rachel Penn stands beside me, tablet in one hand and a cooling cup of coffee in the other. She is 40, sharp-featured, and she has the look of someone who sleeps 4 hours a night because the schedule does not allow for 6. Her job is to keep the yard running on time and under budget, which means her job is to absorb bad news and convert it into action items. Right now she is watching 5 people weld a support truss into place, and she looks pleased. Efficiency, she says, tapping the tablet screen. Look at that. No wasted motion, no back and forth. They are a machine. I do not correct her, but they are not a machine. Machines do not hand each other tools before the request is spoken. Machines do not finish each other's sentences with the flat certainty of someone reading a script they have already memorized. The crew below is working in a rhythm I recognize, the same timing that moved Carter's hand in the medbay 3 nights ago. One welder reaches for a clamp. Another hands it over before the first one's fingers are fully extended. They do not make eye contact. They do not speak. The clamp changes hands, locks into place, and the weld begins. Smooth, seamless. When were they last linked? I ask. Penn glances at me, then back at her tablet. Crew 12 ran a sink under Callan 2 days ago. Truss repair on the mirror array frame. Why? Pull their logs, I say. I want to see the disconnect timestamps and their post-sync med checks. Is there a problem? I do not know yet. She does not argue, which is one of the things I appreciate about Penn. She taps the screen, pulls the files and sends them to my tablet without asking for justification. I open the logs and scroll through the disconnect data. 5 workers, all linked to Jude Callan for a 4-hour operation. Clean disconnects across the board. No errors, no warnings, no flagged anomalies. Post-sync med checks show normal vitals, normal cognitive function, no reported discomfort. But I am watching them work, and they are moving like they are still linked. I make a note in my personal file and leave the observation deck. Penn stays behind, watching the crew with the satisfied expression of someone who sees throughput numbers climbing and does not think to ask why. The call comes in at 1800 hours. A surveyor on the Mars surface has collapsed. I am halfway through a maintenance inspection on the crown rack, 40 head frames mounted in a temperature-controlled cabinet, each one wrapped in soft grey foam when not in use, when my tablet chimes with a priority alert. The message is short. Medical emergency, surface rig 4. Surveyor down. Possible equipment failure, need consult. I lock the cabinet, grab my field kit, and take the lift down to the communications hub. The hub is a circular room with 6 workstations arranged around a central hollow display that shows the real-time positions of every active rig on the surface. Right now, the display is crowded with amber dots marking the 50-person crew spread across the landing zone, and one red dot that blinks at me like a warning light. The duty officer is a man named Garrett, mid-30s, with the kind of calm that comes from talking people through crises they cannot see. He waves me over to his station and cues up the incident footage. Surveyor named Lim, he says. Mid-stride, she just drops. No stumble, no hesitation. Legs fold like someone told her to kneel. The footage is grainy. Surface cameras are built for durability, not clarity. But I can see what Garrett means. Lim is walking across a stretch of red regolith, carrying a sensor probe in both hands, when her knees bend and she drops. Not a fall, a controlled descent, the kind you would use if you were kneeling before a bolt panel to inspect the lower fittings. Her knees hit the ground hard enough that I can see the suit's external plating crack along the left knee joint. She stays down for 8 seconds, then pitches forward onto her hands. The probe rolls away. She is stable now, Garrett says. Rig medic checked her out. No suit breach, no injuries beyond bruising, but she says she did not choose to kneel. She says her legs just did it. I zoom in on the timestamp. The incident occurred at 1743. I pull Lim's sync log and cross-reference her recent operations. She was linked 3 days ago, part of a surface crew running cable under a conductor named Callan. Of course it was Callan. Was she ever trained on bolt panel inspection? I ask. Garrett frowns, confused by the question. She is a surveyor, ground analysis, sensor placement. Why? Because she knelt like someone inspecting a panel, I say. That is not a general-purpose motion. That is a specific procedure. I run a deeper search on her implant logs and find something that should not be there. Trace command signatures in her motor buffer, logged at 1742. 1 minute before the collapse. The signatures match Callan's transmission profile. But Lim was not linked to Callan at 1742. Lim was not linked to anyone. She was walking alone across open ground carrying a probe, and somehow Callan's routines reached her anyway. I close the log and look at Garrett. I need to see Callan. Where is he right now? Medical ward, Garrett says. Came in this morning. Some kind of equipment issue with his head frame during a sync. He has been unconscious since 0900. The room feels colder than it did a moment ago. I thank Garrett, close the footage and head for the medical ward. The lift ride takes 90 seconds, long enough for me to think about Carter's hand moving in a rhythm that belonged to Callan, about the welding crew working in Callan's timing, about Lim's knees folding at the exact angle Callan uses when he kneels before a panel. Long enough to think about how Skylark Mesh was designed to route commands toward the strongest active node, and how that routing does not care whether the node chose to be active or not. When the lift doors open, I step into the ward and see 3 workers standing at the main tool rack, reaching for the same wrench at the same time, their hands moving in perfect unison. I start running. The medical ward is a wide rectangular space divided into treatment bays by ceiling-mounted curtains. Callan is in Bay 7, flat on his back, eyes open but unseeing. The transmit indicator light on his head frame, a small green LED set into the crown's central node, is on. Active. Dr. Elise Merrin stands beside the bed, arms crossed, staring at the monitor that displays Callan's neural activity. She is 50, grey-haired, and she built the bridge protocol from scratch over a span of 8 years. If anyone understands how Skylark Mesh works, it is her. If anyone can tell me how to turn it off, it is her. He is still transmitting, I say. Merrin does not look away from the monitor. Baseline conductor mode. No deviation, no dropout. His coil is active, and I do not know why. Can you shut it down? I tried. She taps the screen, pulling up a series of failed command logs. Manual override, remote shutdown, even a hard power cut to the crown. The coil stays active. It is drawing power from somewhere, and the mesh recognizes him as an active conductor, so it keeps routing through him. I step closer to the bed and look at Callan. He is 52, broad-shouldered, with the kind of build that comes from 30 years of manual work. His hands rest on the blanket, still and heavy. His eyes track light, left, then right, following the ceiling fixtures, but there is no recognition in them, no awareness. He is breathing. His heart is beating. But the man who made 100 workers move like one is not here anymore. What happened to him? I ask. Damaged head frame during a high-load sync, Merrin says. The cooling loop failed, overheated the transmit coil. He seized once, hard enough to crack 2 teeth, then went under. That was 12 hours ago. I think about the welding crew, about Lim on the red plane. How many people were linked to him when it happened? Merrin pulls up the sync roster. 16. All clear disconnects. No one reported problems. Check their logs. Check everyone who has ever been linked to him. I think his routines are propagating. She turns to look at me, and for the first time since I entered the ward, she looks uncertain. Propagating how? Through the mesh. Through the workers. I do not know the mechanism, but I have seen 3 separate incidents in the last 3 days, and every one of them matches Callan's timing. His habits, his procedures. I point at the green light on the crown. He is still conducting. The mesh does not care that he is unconscious. It is using him as a node, and his routines are moving through everyone who has ever been connected to him, or connected to someone who was connected to him. Merrin is quiet for a long time. Then she says, that should not be possible. And yet. She pulls up a wider log, one that tracks mesh activity across the entire yard and the surface rigs. The data streams across the screen in tight rows. Timestamps, node IDs, transmission signatures. She filters for Callan's profile and highlights every instance where his signature appears in someone else's buffer. The screen lights up. Dozens of hits. Hundreds. They are not direct, she says slowly, tracing one line of connections with her finger. They are cascading. Callan to worker A to worker B to worker C. The routines are copying themselves across secondary connections. Like a virus, like an echo, she corrects. But the distinction feels thin. The mesh was designed to carry motor prompts. It does not store them. It does not replicate them. This should not... She stops mid-sentence. Her eyes widen. She pulls up a new window, one I do not recognize, and scrolls through a dense block of code. The solar event, she says. 4 days ago, we lost 3 relay satellites and had to reroute through secondary nodes. The system compensated by increasing signal persistence to prevent dropout during handoff. I authorized it myself. Short-term buffer extension, just enough to keep operations smooth until the satellites came back online. And the satellites came back online 2 days ago. I forgot to revert the buffer settings. She closes her eyes, exhales slowly. The routines are not clearing. They are persisting in the worker's implants because the mesh thinks it still needs to hold them in reserve. Can you revert it now? I can try. But if the routines have already embedded... She does not finish the sentence. She does not have to. I look down at Callan, at the green light on his crown, and I feel the first cold edge of real fear. The bridge was built to coordinate work across distance. It was never supposed to leave anything behind. But now it is leaving Callan behind in the bodies of people who never asked to carry him, and I do not know how to get him out. Behind me, someone's boots scuff the floor. I turn and see a nurse standing in the doorway to Bay 7, her right hand opening and closing in a precise pinching motion. She is staring at her own fingers like they belong to someone else. "Dr. Merrin," the nurse says quietly. "I think I need help." Merrin moves fast, guiding the nurse to a chair and checking her socket. I step back and watch the woman's hand continue its rhythm. Clamp, rotate, lock. And I think about how many people work on this yard. How many people are linked to the mesh. How many people are going to wake up tomorrow morning and find that their hands do not belong to them anymore. I pull out my tablet and start composing a message to Rachel Penn. The subject line is simple. We have a problem. Penn calls a yard-wide meeting for 0700 the next morning. Attendance is mandatory. She wants to address the incidents before panic spreads, which tells me panic has already started. I arrive early and take a position near the back wall where I can see the entire assembly floor. The space is large enough to hold 300 people when we need it. A converted cargo bay with an open ceiling and walkways that circle the room at 3 levels. Workers file in slowly, clustered in small groups speaking in low voices that do not carry. I watch their hands. Most are still. Some are not. A woman near the front rubs her left thumb across her fingertips in a slow, repetitive pattern. A man by the tool lockers flexes his right wrist, rotating it back and forth like he is testing a joint that has gone stiff. Neither of them seems aware they are doing it. I make a mental note of their faces and pull up my tablet to log their employee IDs for follow-up checks. Penn takes the center of the floor at exactly 0700. She does not use a podium or a microphone, just plants her feet and speaks loud enough to reach the back rows. I am not going to waste time pretending everything is fine, she says. We have had 11 reported incidents in the last 24 hours. Involuntary movements, motor anomalies, whatever you want to call them, they are happening, and we need to address them before someone gets hurt. A rigger near the middle of the crowd raises her hand. Her name is Sable. I recognize her from the truss repair crew that worked under Callan last week. She is tall, lean, with the kind of calm that comes from working high places where panic will kill you. Right now, she does not look calm. "What if we are already hurt?" she asks. Penn pauses, then nods. Medical is running assessments. If you are experiencing symptoms, report to the medbay immediately. Dr. Merrin is implementing isolation protocols, and Micah Dwyer is inspecting every active implant to identify the source. And if you cannot identify the source, someone else calls out. I do not see who. We will, Penn says, and the certainty in her voice is the kind you use when you do not have a better answer. Until then, all high-load syncs are suspended. No conductor operations, no multi-crew links. Solo work only, with manual safety checks every 30 minutes. The room erupts. A low, building murmur of voices that layer over each other until the words blur into noise. I hear fragments. Can't meet the deadline? What about the mirror rays? I need my paycheck. Suspend my implant, I don't care. Penn raises one hand and waits for quiet. It takes longer than it should. The mirror raise is still scheduled, she says when the noise dies down. 72 hours from now. We are not delaying, but we are doing it safely, which means we identify and fix this problem before anyone goes outside. I'm about to step forward and tell Penn that 72 hours might not be enough when I see Sable's right foot slide forward, just a few centimeters. Her weight shifts, her knee bends slightly, and her boot scrapes the deck plate with a sound like stone dragged across metal. She looks down. Her hands go to the railing beside her, knuckles white, and she does not move, does not speak. The foot stays where it is, extended, weight on the ball, heel raised like she is mid-stride towards something only she can see. I push through the crowd. People step aside when they see me moving, and I reach Sable in less than 10 seconds. Her jaw is tight, her breathing shallow, and when I touch her shoulder, she flinches like I have burned her. I did not do that, she says. Her voice is calm, but I can hear the effort it takes to keep it that way. I was standing still. Then my leg just moved. Look at me, I say, and wait until her eyes focus on mine. I am going to check your implant. Do not try to move. Do not resist. Let it do what it wants until I tell you otherwise. She nods once, short and sharp. I move behind her and check the socket. Active. The lead is connected to a portable crown, a lighter version of the full head frame, designed for solo operations where you need coordination support but not full conductor control. The indicator light is green. Transmitting. Who authorized your crown? I ask. No one. I did not turn it on. I pull out my tablet and access her implant remotely. The log shows activation at 0704, 4 minutes ago. No manual input, no authorization code. The mesh activated her crown on its own and started feeding her motor prompts, and now her leg is trying to walk her somewhere she does not want to go. I kill the connection manually, forcing the crown offline. The light goes dark. Sable exhales hard, like she has been holding her breath, and her leg relaxes. She pulls her foot back into line with the other, tests her weight on both legs, and then grips the railing so hard I think she might bend it. It wanted me to walk, she says quietly. I could feel it, not like a thought, like a direction, like someone was pulling me forward. I do not ask where. I already know. The assembly floor has a service ladder 20 meters to Sable's right, one of the main access points to the upper walkways where the truss repair work happens. The same work Callan ran last week, the same ladder Callan climbed 100 times. Penn is beside me now, tablet in hand, face pale. What just happened? The mesh activated her crown without authorization, I say. It tried to move her. How? I do not know, but if it can do it to her, it can do it to anyone. Penn looks at Sable, then at the crowd. Half of them are wearing crowns, solo rigs that let them work independently while staying connected to the mesh for safety monitoring. Every one of those crowns is a potential access point. Every one of those people is a potential target. Shut them down, Penn says. All of them. Now. I bring up the master control interface on my tablet and send a yard-wide deactivation command. 300 crowns go offline in less than a second. The indicator lights blink out like stars vanishing behind a cloud. For a moment the room is silent. Then someone near the front drops to their knees. His name is Vickers. He is a cable tech, mid-20s, and he does not have a crown. Implant disabled, no leads, no active connection to the mesh. But he is kneeling on the deck with his knees bent at exactly 90 degrees, his hands hovering in front of him like he is gripping a tool that is not there. And his face is slack, with the kind of confusion that comes right before terror. I reach him at the same time as two other workers. We grab his shoulders and try to pull him up, but his legs resist. Not violently, just firmly, like he is bracing against weight. His mouth opens, closes, and he says, "I cannot stand. I am trying. I cannot." Merrin appears from somewhere in the crowd, moving fast. She kneels beside Vickers and checks for an implant. There is one. He opted out of the program 6 months ago, citing personal reasons. Socket present, disabled, bridge inactive, physical connection remains. "How is this possible?" Merrin asks, and the question is not directed at anyone. It is just the thing she needs to say out loud. "He worked under Callan 2 weeks ago," I say, pulling Vickers' employment log from the database. "Before he opted out, he was linked for a surface cable run, 8 hours, full conductor sync." Merrin goes still. "The routine's embedded before he disconnected. And now they are activating without a bridge. That should not—" "I know," I say, cutting her off. "But here we are." Vickers' hands start to move. Slow, deliberate motions. Fingers adjusting an invisible clamp. Wrists rotating to set tension. He is going through a procedure I have seen Callan demonstrate in training videos. A cable fixing sequence used when you need to secure a line under load without dropping tension. It is precise work. It is Callan's work. And Vickers is doing it alone, kneeling on the deck with no cable and no reason. Merrin pulls a sedative injector from her belt and presses it against Vickers' neck. The dose is fast-acting. Within seconds his hands slow, his shoulders sag, and the rigidity in his legs fades. 2 workers catch him before he pitches forward, and they carry him toward the medbay without waiting for instructions. The crowd is not murmuring anymore. They are silent in the way people get silent when they realize the danger is not outside the room. It is inside them. Penn raises her voice. "Everyone to the barracks, now. No exceptions. We lock down until Dr. Merrin and Micah have a solution." People move. Fast. I watch them file towards the exits, and I count how many of them are limping, or rubbing their arms, or walking with the careful deliberation of someone testing whether their legs will obey. Too many. We try isolation. The medbay has 6 Faraday tents, wire mesh enclosures designed to block electromagnetic signals during surgeries where you cannot risk interference. Merrin and I set up 3 of them in the main treatment area and assign workers with active symptoms to beds inside. The tents are cramped, hot, and they make the lights look dim because the mesh blocks some of the overhead glow. But they should stop the bridge signal from reaching the implants. Should. The first patient is a woman named Avery, who has been flexing her right hand for the last 6 hours. We disconnect her lead, wrap her in the tent, and monitor her vitals. For 20 minutes, nothing happens. Her hand stays still. Her breathing evens out. Merrin makes a note in her tablet and moves to the next tent. Then Avery's hand opens, closes, opens. I am inside the tent when it starts. The air is warm, close, and I can hear the faint buzz of the mesh filters straining against the signal they are supposed to block. Avery's fingers spread wide, curl into a fist, spread again. The motion is identical to the one I saw 3 days ago in a different patient. And I know we have failed before Merrin even checks the readings. "The signal is getting through," she says, staring at the monitor. "Not as strong, but enough. The tent is dampening it, not stopping it." "Where is it coming from?" She points at the tent frame. "The frame is grounded. The deck plates are grounded. The entire bay is part of the mesh's power distribution network. We built redundancy into every surface so workers could connect anywhere without needing dedicated ports. Now the redundancy is the problem. I look at Avery's hand, still moving, and then at the two other tents where patients are starting to shift restlessly. We cannot isolate them. The yard itself is the bridge. Merrin does not respond. She is scrolling through system diagrams on her tablet, tracing power lines and signal paths with one finger, and I can see the moment she realizes how deep the problem goes. The mesh is not just in the implants. It is in the walls, the floors, the air filtration conduits, the structural frames. Every piece of metal is a potential conductor. Every grounded surface is a pathway. You cannot disconnect from a system that is also the building you live in. Cut the power, I say. Main bus, full shutdown, revert to emergency batteries. That will take the life support offline. For how long? 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, while the backup generators cycle. I think about 300 people in the barracks, about the surface crews working in suits that depend on yard-based coordination, about what happens if we cut power during a critical operation and someone dies because their comm link went dark. Then I think about Vickers kneeling on the deck, hands miming work he did not choose, and I make the call. Do it. Merrin sends the shutdown command. The lights go dark, the monitors blink out. The low, constant background noise of ventilation and temperature control dies into silence, and for 2 minutes the medbay feels like a tomb. I stay beside Avery's bed and watch her hand in the dim glow of the emergency strips. The motion slows, stops. Her fingers relax, then the generators kick in, the lights come back, the monitors reboot, and Avery's hand starts moving again. The governor is Merrin's idea. She proposes it in the observation deck, after the failed isolation attempt, after a junior tech dislocated his shoulder falling off a cot while his legs tried to climb a ladder that was not there. The idea is simple. Insert a ceramic loop into Callan's head frame that limits the current his transmit coil can draw. Throttle the signal at the source. Turn the conductor down instead of trying to turn him off. It is like a resistor, she explains, pulling up a schematic on the main screen. The coil draws power, the governor restricts the flow, and the output drops below the threshold needed to propagate commands. He stays alive, the mesh stays stable, and the routines stop spreading. Penn is sitting at the conference table, arms crossed, exhaustion carved into the lines around her eyes. How confident are you? 80%. And the other 20%? Merrin hesitates. The coil overheats. We damage the implant. Callan dies. He is already gone, Penn says, and her voice is flat in the way people sound when they are too tired to feel guilt. If this works, we save 300 people. If it does not, we have lost one man who was lost anyway. Do it. I follow Merrin to the medical ward. Callan is still on the gurney in Bay 7, eyes open, tracking light. The transmit indicator on his crown is green. I have checked it 6 times in the last 24 hours, and it has never wavered. The governor is a thin ceramic ring about the diameter of a coin, with a cooling loop wrapped around the outer edge. Merrin holds it up to the light, checking the seals, and then she nods at me. Hold him steady. If he seizes again, I need to finish before the movement shifts the coil alignment. I brace Callan's shoulders and head, pressing down just enough to keep him from moving. His skin is warm, his pulse is strong, and I can feel the faint vibration of the active coil under his scalp, like a tuning fork humming against bone. Merrin disconnects the crown's power lead, fits the governor into place between the coil and the skull plate, and reconnects the lead. The indicator light blinks once, twice, then goes green again. The governor's cooling loop starts to circulate. I can hear the faint liquid rush inside the narrow tubing. For 5 seconds, nothing happens. Then the loop starts to hiss. The sound is high, thin, and wrong, like air escaping through a crack in a pressurized seal. Merrin's eyes go wide. She reaches for the disconnect, but before her fingers touch the lead, the hiss becomes a shriek, and the governor ruptures. Boiling coolant sprays across the headframe. Merrin jerks back, shielding her face, and I grab a towel from the supply cart and press it against the crown to absorb the heat. The towel scorches. Smoke rises. Callan's body convulses once, hard enough that I almost lose my grip, and I hear a crack like porcelain breaking as one of his teeth splits against the bite guard. Then he goes still. The transmit light flickers, dims. For a moment I think it is going to go dark, and I feel something like hope start to build in my chest. Then the light stabilizes. Green. Active. The overlap does not stop. Merrin removes the ruined governor. The ceramic ring is cracked along one edge, the cooling loop melted into slag. She drops it into the medical waste bin and stands there, staring at Callan's face. And I realize she is crying. "I built this," she says quietly. "I designed the mesh to help people work together. And now it is using them. It is taking them." I do not have an answer for her. I just take the scorched towel and drop it in the waste bin beside the governor. And I wonder how much time we have left before the overlap decides it is done waiting for us to fix ourselves. The all-hands meeting is Rachel Penn's last attempt at control. She schedules it for 1800 hours in the assembly hall, mandatory attendance, and she opens with the numbers. 43 confirmed cases of involuntary movement. 12 workers sedated. 6 with injuries severe enough to require medical leave, and 0 progress on a solution. "We have 72 hours until the mirror rays," she says. "If we delay, the surface colony loses power. If we proceed, we risk operating under these conditions. I need options." Merrin stands. "We shut down Skylark Mesh entirely. Pull every implant, deactivate every node, sever the bridge at every connection point. It will take weeks, but it is the only way to guarantee the overlap stops." "And the surface crews?" "Manual coordination, radio comm, the way we worked before the mesh." "The way we worked was slow, dangerous, and expensive," Penn says. "We built the bridge because people died trying to coordinate complex lifts over radio delay. You want me to go back to that?" "I want you to stop people from losing control of their own bodies," Merrin says, and her voice cracks on the last word. Penn opens her mouth to respond. Before she can, a man in the third row stands up, then another, then a woman near the back. One by one, 50 people rise from their seats in perfect unison, their faces blank, their eyes focused on something the rest of us cannot see. They turn toward the airlock doors and start walking. No one speaks, no one runs. They just walk, purposeful, synchronized, and the sound of their boots on the deck is the only noise in the room. I see Sable in the crowd, her hands loose at her sides, her stride matching the person beside her step for step. I see the nurse from the medbay, the one whose hand would not stop moving. I see Vickers, who should still be sedated in medical. I shout for them to stop. My voice does not reach them. They are walking to a rhythm I recognize. Callan's timing, the practiced cadence of a crew preparing for a high-tension operation. And I know where they are going before they reach the airlock control panel. I sprint across the assembly floor, shoving through the remaining crowd, and I reach the control booth 30 seconds before the first worker. The booth is a small glass-walled room with a manual override panel that can lock or unlock any airlock on the yard. I slap the emergency lockdown button hard enough to split the skin on my palm, and every airlock in the yard seals with a hollow metallic thud that I feel through the floor. The crowd stops walking. They stand in a loose cluster near the airlock doors, swaying slightly, and then one by one they collapse. Some drop to their knees. Others sit down hard, their legs folding under them. A few just stand there, shaking, until someone nearby helps them to the floor. Sable is on her hands and knees, gasping like she has sprinted a kilometer. She looks up at me, and the fear in her eyes is sharp enough to cut. "It wanted us outside," she says. "For the mirror race. It wanted us to start early." I look at the sealed airlock, at the 50 people scattered on the floor, and I feel my own right hand twitch. My fingers angle into a shape I recognize. Clamp, rotate, lock, and I press my palm flat against the control panel, using the cold metal to ground the impulse. It fades. For now. Pen is beside me, staring at the crowd, her tablet hanging loose in one hand. She does not ask what just happened. She just looks at me and says, "Find a way to stop this. We have 72 hours. After that, we are out of options." I do not tell her we might already be out of options. I just nod, leave the booth, and head for my quarters. I need to think. I need to find a solution that does not involve watching 300 people walk themselves into vacuum because a dead man's routines think it is time to work. There has to be a way. There has to be. I just have to find it before my own hands stop being mine. I find the answer in a training manual I have not opened in 3 years. It is 2,200 hours. I am sitting on my bunk in quarters that measure 3 meters by 4, with a wall locker, a fold-down desk, and a viewport the size of my hand. The manual is open on my tablet, a dry, technical document titled Emergency Override Protocols for Skylark Mesh Conductor Operations, and I am reading section 12 for the 3rd time because my brain keeps skipping over the words. In the event of conductor signal conflict, the mesh routing algorithm prioritizes the strongest active node. Secondary nodes defer automatically. This hierarchy prevents command collision during multi-conductor operations. I sit up. Read it again. The mesh always routes toward the strongest node. Callan's coil is transmitting at baseline conductor strength, enough to coordinate a dozen workers, but not enough to dominate the entire yard. If I could become a stronger node, the mesh would route through me instead. The overlap would follow the signal, and if I could pull all of Callan's routines into a single target, I could cut the system and burn the path clean. The conductor chair is designed to amplify a transmit coil to a level that can coordinate 50 workers simultaneously. It is the most powerful node in the yard. If I strap myself into that chair, disable the safety interlocks that prevent prolonged exposure, and turn myself into a beacon, the overlap will come to me. It will have no choice. And once it is in me, I can walk myself to the main switch room and short the bus manually. The plan is simple. The plan is probably going to kill me, but it is the only plan I have. I pull up the comm interface and send a priority call to the surface. The delay is half a second, long enough to second guess, short enough that I cannot back out. The screen stays black for a second. Then Kate's face appears. She looks tired. Her hair is pulled back in a rough knot, and there is a pressure mark across her forehead from the helmet seal. She works the surface rigs as a crew lead, coordinating lifts and equipment placement across terrain that shifts every time the wind picks up. We were married for 6 years, divorced for 2, and we still talk every week because our daughter needs both of us to be functional adults. "Micah," she says, "tell me you have good news. Switch to local hand signals. Kill your bridge. Do not reconnect until I confirm the yard is clear. What is happening? The mesh is using people without permission. I am going to stop it, but I do not know what I will be like when it is done." The delay stretches. 8 seconds of silence where I can see her thinking, weighing options, deciding whether to ask questions or just trust me. When she speaks again, her voice is careful. "Our daughter has a call scheduled with you in 3 days. You better be there." "I will try." "Do not try. Be there." The screen cuts to black. I sit in the dim glow of the emergency lighting and let myself feel the weight of what I just promised. Then I stand, leave my quarters, and walk to the medbay. Merrin and Penn are in the observation deck, reviewing contingency plans that will not work. I interrupt without apologizing. "I have a solution," I say. "You will not like it." Penn looks up from her tablet. "Try me." I explain the plan. The conductor chair, the amplified signal, the manual short circuit. Merrin is shaking her head before I finish the second sentence. "The chair is rated for 6-hour maximum exposure," she says. "You are talking about using it as a trap. The neural load will burn out your motor cortex. You will have tremors for the rest of your life, if you survive at all." 60% chance, I say. That is better than what we have now. 60% chance of what? Survival, function, being yourself afterward. Yes. Pen sets her tablet down. And if it does not work, then I die, and you have lost one person instead of 300. She taps her screen, pulls up a medical waiver form, and slides it across the table toward me. Sign this. If you die, I am not explaining it to your daughter. I sign. Merrin watches me, her face pale, and I can see her trying to find another argument. She does not. She just stands, motions for me to follow, and leads me to the med bay. The conductor chair sits in a corner of the medical ward behind a privacy curtain. It is built from brushed steel and worn leather padding, with restraint straps across the chest, wrists, and ankles. The head frame is larger than the portable crowns, a full crown with 12 contact points that press against the scalp in a ring from forehead to nape. When you sit in it, you feel like you are being held in place by something that does not trust you to stay still. 2 medics help me into the chair. One of them is young, maybe 25, and the other is older, grey-haired, and she works like someone who has done this too many times. She fits the crown onto my head, adjusting the contacts until each one presses firm against my scalp. They are cold at first, then warm, then uncomfortable. Merrin stands in front of me, holding a tablet that displays my neural activity in real time. I am going to disable the safety interlocks. Once I do, the chair will not shut down automatically, no matter what your vitals show. If you change your mind, tell me now. I will not. She taps the screen 3 times, confirms the override, and steps back. The moment you activate, the mesh will route every active command through you. You will feel it in your muscles first, tightening, contracting. Do not fight it. Let it move you until you reach the switch room. Fighting will just damage your nervous system faster. Understood. And Micah. She pauses. If this works, and you survive, you will carry traces of Callan's routines for the rest of your life. Motor memory does not erase. It settles. You need to know that before you start. I know. She nods and activates the chair. The transmit coil powers up. I feel it as heat first, a line of warmth spreading across my scalp where the contacts press into skin. Then the heat becomes pressure, and the pressure becomes something deeper. My chest tightens firmly, like someone has wrapped a strap around my ribs and pulled it 2 notches too far. I send a yard-wide alert through my tablet. All personnel to barracks, all active nodes to standby, no exceptions. I wait 30 seconds for compliance. Then I make my body into a beacon and open the signal wide. The response is immediate. My right hand lifts. I do not tell it to lift. I do not think about lifting, but the fingers extend, angle inward, and form a shape I recognize. Clamp, rotate, lock. The same motion I have seen 100 workers perform under Callan's coordination. It is precise. My jaw closes. The mouthguard deforms between my teeth, and the edge cuts the inside of my cheek. My legs want to stand. I let them. The restraints hold my chest and wrists, but my ankles are free, and my feet press flat against the floor like I am preparing to walk. The chair frame creaks. The young medic starts to move toward me. Merrin stops him with one hand. Let it finish. My left hand strains against the wrist strap. The leather pulls tight and I feel the circulation restrict. My fingers twitch, reaching for a tool that is not there, adjusting tension on a cable that does not exist. Inside my body there is a second rhythm, layered over my own. It moves through my muscles like a current, tightening fibers in sequence, angling joints without asking permission. I recognize the rhythm. I have seen it in training videos, in live operations, in the bone-deep routine of a man who made complex lifts feel effortless. Callan's timing, Callan's routines, Callan's work, running through me like a song I never chose to learn. I understand now why the crews loved him. This rhythm gets things built. It is fast, clean, and certain. There is no hesitation in it, no wasted motion. It knows what needs to happen next, and it makes your body do it before your brain catches up. For a moment I feel the seduction of it. The promise that if I just let go, if I stop fighting, the work will flow through me and everything will be easy. Then I think about Sable on the catwalk, her foot stepping toward the edge without permission. I think about Vickers kneeling on the deck, hands miming work he did not choose. I think about 50 people walking toward an airlock because a dead man's routines decided it was time. I use the rhythm against itself. The overlap wants me to walk. I walk. It wants me to turn toward the assembly floor exit. I turn. The medics release the restraints, and I stand fully for the first time since the chair activated. My legs carry me forward in a cadence that is not mine. Steady, purposeful, unhurried. I do not resist. I let Callan's timing move me because I know where it will take me. The main switch room. Because Callan's routines are designed to keep work moving, and the one thing that stops work is a power failure. The overlap will take me to the switch room to make sure nothing interrupts the job. And when I get there, I am going to do what Callan never would. Shut it down. The walk takes 4 minutes. My legs move without input, carrying me down 2 corridors and through a service access that requires a code I type with fingers that are only half under my control. Merrin follows at a distance, tablet in hand, watching my vitals spike and drop as the overlap wrestles with my nervous system for priority. Penn is somewhere behind her, speaking into a comm unit, coordinating a response I will not need if this works. The switch room is a narrow space lined with power distribution panels and cooling ducts. The main bus bar runs along the back wall, a thick copper rail about as long as my forearm, mounted horizontally between 2 ceramic insulators. It connects the mesh network to the crown rack, feeding power to every active node in the yard. If I short that bar to ground, the current will spike, the safeties will blow, and every transmit coil will drop offline simultaneously. The overlap brings me to the doorway and stops. My right hand reaches for the safety clamp on the nearest panel, a spring-loaded bar that prevents accidental contact with live current. I removed that clamp 6 hours ago when I was planning this. My hand searches for it anyway, fingers groping the empty mount, and I feel the confusion ripple through the rhythm inside me. The routine expects the clamp to be there. It is not. I use that confusion. I slam my left forearm against the edge of the cabinet, hard enough to send numbness shooting up to my elbow. The pain disrupts the overlap's control for 3 seconds, long enough for me to turn my body sideways and position my hip between my hands and the bus bar. The overlap cannot see the bar anymore. It cannot align my hands with the target. My fingers grasp air, twitch, and go still. I reach into my pocket with my right hand, the only hand I fully control in this moment, and pull out a copper pin. I machined it this afternoon in the fabrication shop, 10 centimeters long, narrow as a pencil, hard enough to punch through insulation. I drop it into the open coupling where the bus bar meets the ground plane. The overlap realizes what I'm doing. My legs try to step backward. My hands try to pull me away from the panel. I brace my boots against the deck, grip the cabinet frame with both hands and hold. Then I use the crown's amplified power to turn myself into a short circuit. The current finds the path through the pin, through the coupling, through me. Heat rises up my spine, spreads across my shoulders, and concentrates in my skull where the crown sits. The contacts burn. I can feel them charring skin, blistering tissue, and I press my head forward against the pain because if I pull back now, the circuit will break, and nothing will change. The lights inside the power rack go from steady to wild. They flare white, then yellow, then dim to a sick orange glow. A section of copper banding on the crown's frame starts to darken, first to bronze, then to a dull red that sags under its own heat. The room smells like scorched insulation and burned hair. My vision narrows to a tunnel, and inside that tunnel I can see the indicator lights on the mesh rack blinking faster and faster until they blur into a single sustained glow. Then they blow. The sound is sharp and flat, like a ceramic plate striking concrete. The rack goes dark. The crown goes dead. The heat in my skull peaks, holds for one endless second and fades. I keep my head down and count. 1, 2, 3. The room stops vibrating at 7. I let go of the cabinet at 10. My legs fold and I sit down hard on the deck, back against the wall, hands loose in my lap. Across the yard and across the surface rigs, the involuntary movements stop. I do not see it happen, but I know it does because the comm unit on the wall comes alive with voices, confused, shaken, relieved. Someone is crying. Someone else is laughing. A third voice is calling for med checks, and a fourth is confirming that all airlocks are sealed and all workers are accounted for. Merrin kneels beside me. She pulls the crown off carefully, and I feel the contacts peel away from burned skin. She does not speak. She just wraps a cooling pad around my head, checks my pulse, and nods once. Penn's voice comes through the comm. Status? Mesh is down, Merrin says. Callan's coil is inactive. The overlap is over. There is a pause. Then Penn says, and Micah. Merrin looks at me. I raise my left hand and watch it shake. A steady tremor that starts in the wrist and spreads to the fingertips. I press the hand flat against my thigh, and the tremor fades, but does not stop. He will live, Merrin says. She does not say what kind of life. I wake in the med bay 6 days later. The first thing I notice is the light. It is too bright, coming through the viewport at an angle that means it is either early morning or late afternoon. I turn my head, slow, testing, and see Merrin sitting in a chair beside the bed reading something on her tablet. What day is it? My voice is rough and my throat feels like I swallowed gravel. Day 6 post-incident. You have been sedated for most of it. We needed to let your nervous system stabilize before we brought you up. I try to sit, and my left hand slips on the bed rail. The tremor is still there, triggered by effort. When I grip the rail, the shaking stops. When I relax, it starts again. Permanent, I ask. We do not know yet. Motor memory damage is unpredictable. You might regain full control in a few months, or you might carry the tremor for the rest of your life. She sets the tablet aside. You also have scarring on your scalp where the crown contacts burned you. The hair will grow back, but the tissue underneath is compromised. No implants, no bridge. You are permanently off the mesh. Good. She does not smile, but something in her expression softens. Rachel Penn wants to see you when you are up for it. She has questions about the new safety protocols. What protocols? The ones you are going to help us write. We are rebuilding the mesh from the ground up with consent as the foundation. No involuntary activation. No conductor operations without crew vote. And a new role. Someone who monitors the system for low-level signal bleed and acts as a ground before it can build to dangerous levels. We are calling it a safety bridge. Penn thinks you should be the first one. I look at my left hand, at the tremor that moves through it like an echo of someone else's rhythm, and I understand what she is offering. A way to be useful, a way to carry what cannot be fixed. I will do it, I say. I thought you would. 8 weeks later, I return to the yard. The assembly floor looks the same, but the work has changed. Before every shift, crews gather in circles of 4 or 5 and press palms together, skin to skin, no gloves. The gesture is called a consent ring, and it means everyone present is choosing to be there, choosing to work, choosing to link if the job requires it. Anyone can break the ring at any time by stepping back and saying 3 words, hands are mine. I join a ring on my second day back. Sable is there, along with 3 techs I do not know well. We press palms in silence, and Sable squeezes my hand hard enough that I feel the bones shift. Hands are mine, she says, and the others follow. The mesh is active again, but it is limited. High load sinks require a vote. Conductor operations are capped at 15-minute intervals with mandatory breaks. and every active node feeds a trickle of signal into a dampening cuff I wear on my left wrist, a device that lets me absorb low-level bleed before it can accumulate in anyone else. When the mesh strains during an all-hands lift, I feel it first. My chest tightens, the muscles behind my knees go taut, my left hand starts to trace shapes against my thigh, bolt patterns, cable configurations, the ghost of routines that do not belong to me. I sit down, count to 30, and let the signal pass through me until it fades. The work is slower now. It is also hours. I visit Callan every week. The long-term care ward is quiet in a way the rest of the yard is not. Callan is in a bed by the far wall, propped at a 45-degree angle so his head does not roll. His eyes blink when the air touches them, but they do not track. His hands rest on the blanket, palms up, fingers slightly curled. I bring a bag of bolts from the yard, standard M12 fittings knurled along one side, the kind Callan used in 1,000 operations. I tip one into his palm. It is cold, heavy, and the weight makes his fingers close slightly around it. My own fingers twitch. I feel the ghost of the motion. Clamp, rotate, lock, and I let it finish before I press my hand flat against the bed rail. The tremor fades. I do not apologize to Callan. I do not forgive him. He did not choose this any more than the rest of us did. But I sit with him anyway, watching the light change on the viewport, and I talk. I tell him about the consent rings, about the 3-word call, about the new protocols that make work slower but safer. I tell him about the surface crews who are learning to coordinate without surrendering the boundaries that make them separate people. I do not know if he hears me. I do not know if it matters. I am not here to fix him. I am here to witness what the bridge took and what it gave, a way to move together that could become a way to take each other, if we are not careful. When I leave, I set the bolt back in the bag. Callan's hand stays curled in the shape it learned, holding air where metal used to be. The mirror raise happens on a cold morning 60 days after the overlap ended. I stand on the observation deck and watch the crews work. They move deliberately, calling out each step, checking twice before every action. The array climbs slow, 1 meter, then 2, then 5, and the surface crews guide it into position with hand signals and radio comm instead of bridge coordination. It takes 4 hours instead of 2. When the array locks into place and the power feeds go live, the surface colony lights stay on. The solar collectors track the sun. The life support continues without interruption. Pen stands beside me, watching the same scene, and she does not say anything about efficiency or timelines. She just watches people work in a rhythm they chose, and after a long silence she says, "We are going to make it." "We already did," I say. My left hand is resting on the rail, and I can feel the cuff warming against my wrist as it bleeds off a low pulse of mesh signal. The tremor is there, a reminder of what I carry. I press my palm flat, and the metal is cold, solid, and entirely mine.